tax. I mean, we are especially in Southern Maryland, whether it's Route 4, whether it's Route 5, 235, 234, Route 210, 301, people are traveling. And, T and I used to be the only people on the road, at 4:15 in the morning. That is not the case.
There's a lot of people out there.
There are commuters that are going earlier, they're coming home later, and they're driving over 100 miles, round trip further. And now this VMT tax, which is the vehicle miles, is that right?
That's right. Vehicle miles travel tax.
Yeah, you sent us the story, if you will, or the press release on it.
What is that? Where is that coming from?
Sure, that's coming out of a 2009 law that gave the state of Maryland the right to investigate options of increasing taxes on commuters.
Great law.
Well, wouldn't the gas tax? We just increased the gas tax.
Absolutely.
Last year.
And in all fairness, the vehicle miles travel tax is not law, but it's a discussion that is an ongoing discussion that's occurring. And you're right, we just raised gas taxes.
Is it a serious discussion, Mark? I mean, are there people getting behind it? Because, go ahead.
No, great. Any discussion in Annapolis about new taxes is a serious discussion.
They never turn down a revenue stream when it comes to taxes.
Exactly.
I mean, they just don't. They will not do it. And if somebody says, oh, by the way, I found a new way you could tax somebody, they're like a crack addict. They're just going to jump all over that.
They are. And Maryland loves California because California is implementing this very tax.
And Oregon, too, right?
That's right. California, 5 cents per mile driven.
Now, think about that.
Oh, my gosh.
5 cents per mile. We did a poll on the air the other day, and I can't tell you how many people are driving 120, 150 miles a day.
Mm-hmm.
A day.
A day.
Now,
Exactly.
do the math on that. That's a huge financial impact if they went with a nickel a mile. Now, well, we're not going to do that. It's going to be 2 cents a mile. Yeah, wait.
Well, it'll be an increase.
Within a week, it'll be a quarter.
Just like the tolls going over the Harry Nice Bridge or the Bay Bridge, they creep up every single year a little bit more.
Well, exactly. Plus, this tax is in addition to, not in lieu of, the gas tax.
Exactly.
Which makes it so absurd.
And
It's another tax.
And
tolls,
That's right.
So the tolls you pay, the gas tax you pay, and possibly at some point this VMT tax where they're going to tax you every single mile you drive. Now, what if I said, okay, because the only way to do it is to put GPS in cars,
That's
right?
exactly right.
What if I say, Marilyn, bite me, I'm not putting any type of mark of the beast in my car so you can track me and watch, because seriously, you're going to know where my kid goes to school. You're going to know where I buy my gasoline. They're going to sell that information.
But they'll simply say, look, driving isn't a right. It's a privilege. You got to buy tags for your car. You got to register your car. You got to buy insurance for your car. You got to do all these other things. So we're going to put another thing on. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, but you're not going to be allowed on the road.
But the most fundamental right in the United States is the freedom of movement.
You have to sell it on me, man.
So,
right.
But that's what they're going to say.
Absolutely.
Driving is a privilege; it's not a right. And if you want to enjoy this privilege, here's the hoops you have to jump through.
Now,
and in Maryland, you have the central planners too. I mean, this is an important point. In Maryland, you have these central planners who badly want to control where you live, where you drive, how much electricity you use. Quite frankly, it's none of their business. It's your business how much you drive.
it's like the flush tax.
Absolutely.
I mean, limiting where people can build as to what kind of septic system they can put in.
Yes, and meanwhile, there are routinely all of these wastewater treatment plant spillages.
Yeah,
of course,
right.
Not from septic systems, of course. They're from wastewater treatment plants, which are government-run. So,
you only have to go to a wastewater management plant to see that it's, there are some fundamental flaws there. Where you have
some of
giant
them are older. Some of them are older.
Call it whatever you want. But what you have is giant holding tanks where all of the stuff is floating at the top.
Exactly.
You know where it should be? Underground.
Mark, were you one of the handful of state legislators who tried to introduce legislation this year?
Yes.
You were?
Yes.
Okay.
House Bill 277.
No, that was to make this VMT tax illegal.
Right. It's to prohibit even the discussion of putting such a tax in.
And that got shot down, I'm sure.
It got shot down in the
course
committee
it did.
that I sit on.
In committee.
Yes.
In the committee that you sit on, it got shot down.
When you're out there in Annapolis in the building there, and you guys have got your little recess going on, and you're in the hallway.
They're not playing dodgeball.
I believe
a little recess.
I believe they are playing dodgeball. who in the hallway is going, I like the sound of that VMT. I want names. Give me some names. Who in the hallway is, I know you're sworn to a code of secrecy. Who in the hallway is going, you know what, I kind of like the looks of this VMT.
Well, let's just say the chair of my committee is from Tacoma Park. So, that's a nuclear-free zone. So
right, yeah.
Right.
So if this thing actually grew legs, and you think that it could pass?
This is something that absolutely could pass because, as you know, in Annapolis, it's always a crisis.
Yeah.
There's a crisis. There isn't enough money for this. There isn't enough money for that. And that's because we don't have dedicated funds that are constitutionally dedicated. So they keep raiding funds, and then there's a new crisis because there's not enough money for this or that. So, yes, I mean, things that were discussed years ago that you thought were impossible have now become a reality, such as the rain tax, right? I mean, who would have ever thought? We're discussing this vehicle mileage tax, and of course, the rain tax had been discussed for years, and now it's a law.
You said before we went off air, on air, I should say. And by the way, we're speaking with Mark Fisher, Delegate Mark Fisher. You said one of the things that you found surprising when you were out campaigning, knocking on doors. 75% of the people that you spoke to have no designs on staying in Maryland once retired.
That's exactly right. It's such a sad state of affairs for this state because, I love this state, born and raised in this state. So when you knock on someone's door and you say to them, hey, what do you think about retiring in the state of Maryland? Here's what 75% of the people are saying. They're saying,
you're actually talking to face-to-face.
Talking to face-to-face, yeah. And they're saying, hey, Mark, there's no way I could afford to stay in Maryland. It's so expensive for me to live here now. I would never stay here. I would definitely have to move somewhere else, which is a shame because I'm being forced to leave my lifelong network of family and friends.
Right.
And I need that support network in old age.
Does Annapolis, do you think, because you're up in that cesspool, do you think the...
It is a cesspool.
It is. I mean, that should be your treatment plant right there. Do you think that there's the gravitas of that, the implications of this mass exodus, not just of people, but of wealth and property? Do you think Annapolis, that even registers with them?
I don't. I don't think they believe it. I don't think they think it's real.
What's it going to take?
Even a Gallup poll that comes out that says that
47% of Marylanders would leave if they could.
I think what's going to happen is at some point they're going to see this mass exodus and they're going to say, well, that proves it. It's the rapture. Because it's nothing that we did. It can't be Annapolis because we're perfect.
Hey, I want to talk about windmills on the Eastern Shore.
Sure.
Were you surprised at the veto by the governor from a House, was it 168 House bill that the Southern 1168 that the Southern Maryland delegation to say, wait, let's do this testing. Were you surprised by that veto?
I wasn't, and here's why I wasn't surprised. Because the governor of Maryland is not interested in what's best for Maryland. He's interested in what's best for Martin O'Malley because he's running for president of the United States.
Oh, he is the most arrogant individual I've ever met. He is.
I can't imagine
consumed with his own legacy.
I can't imagine him running for president.
He's going to be on somebody's ticket as a vice president. I promise you that. That is his thing.
Okay, magic 8 ball.
Okay, I'm telling you.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's Hillary. I don't know who it is. So but he is destined to be on somebody's ticket as a vice president, and hopefully then later, in his mind, I'll be president.
So what does Southern Maryland do? Pax River is so vital to the economic engine that is Southern Maryland. I mean, is there something that we can do as Southern Marylanders to send a message to the governor, or would it just be falling on deaf ears? Because, I mean, this was across the aisle. I mean, everybody was pretty much together on this, that we just wait, hold on, let them do the testing. And then this happens. Is there something that Southern Marylanders can do?
Well, that's why we need people to apply critical thinking skills about all things, because you need to apply critical thinking skills about renewable energy. You have the President of the United States who is basically giving a directive to the Navy and the military that they have to implement renewable energy whenever possible and wherever possible. But he's doing it at the expense of an entire base that is the central part of the economy of much of Southern Maryland, of course. Well, how does that make sense? Because he's saying it's pro-jobs when in fact actually it's not.
It's killing jobs.
Killing jobs.
En masse.
So I really think what we need is people to apply critical thinking skills and stop blindly saying, well, because it's renewable, it must be great. That's not the case.
Critical thinking, so you're for the Common Core. Is that true, Mark Fisher?
You know what I can't figure out? I can't figure out in Maryland why it is that we have this great educational system. Look at Calvert County, where I live.
Wonderful.
Wonderful public schools, right?
Yeah.
So why would you suddenly say, oh, no, we must get rid of all of the curriculum and
Yeah.
start fresh?
Right.
And in fact, not only do we need to do that, but we need to do it immediately and not train teachers and not give teachers an opportunity to learn what it is that Common Core actually is going to be. So we're still learning what it is. Teachers don't have the training yet. It's being rushed through, and that's what makes people so suspicious, understandably.
Right.
Mark, I've heard from many politicians, and I'm kind of circling back to a question I had earlier. Okay, so everybody realizes that we're headed in the wrong direction. I haven't look, my own political agenda aside, I haven't spoken to a single person that says, "Oh, what we're doing is fantastic." But so then, why do we continue on this path? Why does Annapolis continue to tax us to death?
Because you can't cut spending. What would you cut? I mean, every time I bring somebody in here, what would you cut? It's a him and it's a haw, and then there are no specifics. If you don't want to tax, then what do you do to cut spending?
It's a great question, a fair question. In Annapolis, the liberals consider cutting spending when you reduce the growth of government. To them, that is cutting spending.
So cutting jobs in government?
No, you just flatline the spending. You say, if we spent $30 billion this year, why don't we spend $30 billion next year? But no, they want to spend $33 billion or $35 billion next year because these automatic increases are put into place.
So if you're not automatically increasing the amount you've spent, that in their mind is some kind of reduction.
That's exactly right, in the state of Maryland. But there's also lots of wasteful spending. I mean, and this is an area where I think we can...
Give me an example I want to hear an example of wasteful spending.
Great. $30 million to a company that is outside of the state of Maryland and California to have them shoot House of Cards in the state of Maryland. MRC Capital.
You had an issue with that.
MRC
right?
Capital. Yeah, MRC Capital is located in Los Angeles,
love House
California.
of Cards. I love House of Cards.
It's a great show. Yeah, it's an absolutely great show. But why should we be paying these Hollywood producers and the investors in House of Cards, Netflix and AT&T, $30 million to shoot?
Hold on, back up the wagon. Why are we paying them anything? Why aren't they paying us?
Exactly. They should be paying us to be
They're
here.
using our Capitol building to shoot. Why are we paying them anything?
Because we want them to come here because it's Hollywood.
I think the governor wants them to come here because he sees himself as Hollywood because he wants to be president of the United States. I really think that's what that's.
So so the honor to maybe do a brunch with Kevin Spacey, we got to pay $30 million.
That's exactly right.
I would pay $30 million to have brunch with Kevin Spacey.
Well, that's what they did in Annapolis. They had this big party for all these legislators, and you should have seen the legislators cozying up to Kevin Spacey. And why did he have the party? Because he wanted the $30 million. And by the way, this gentleman is making millions of dollars himself.
I had no idea we were paying anything for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tax benefits.
And so,
absolutely. There was a big fight. I mean, they were talking about not coming here because the state wasn't going to give them these benefits to come shoot the thing. Do you know?
That's exactly right.
Okay, I just want you to...
My jaws are getting very tight.
Hold on. I just want you to say yes or no. That's all I want. Okay. Are you familiar with House of Cards? Do you ever watch it?
I've only watched it once because I can't figure out why I have to pay Netflix and pay taxes to pay for House of Cards at the same time.
I understand. Now I'm questioning it. I watched the whole season.
Frank Underwood.
That's the character Kevin Spacey plays. Yeah.
Is there anybody in Maryland politics that is as devious as Frank Underwood?
I'm sure there is.
I put you on the hot seat. I shouldn't have done that. That's all right.
You drive by it every time you go down Rao Boulevard and you dead end into it. So.
Yes, indeed.
Well, listen, Mark, I appreciate you coming in today. I don't know if there's any stopping this giant tax snowball that rolls down the hill of Maryland.
Is there anything that we as Maryland voters, is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with this morning? Just some thoughts or maybe pay attention to this coming up or whatever?
Yeah, I think there is. I think the key theme here is that opportunity requires hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. It doesn't require government. And, I'm a blue-collar boy from Baltimore, and I have two parents who didn't have college educations. And I got to tell you guys something. They just taught us that hard work, that's how you get ahead. And for some reason, that really simple principle is missing in this country, and it's missing in this state. Because everybody now has been taught, especially the younger folks, that they need to look to government to get ahead. And that is not how you get ahead. You look within yourself.
Well, and part of the problem is you have a president who loudly and proudly says, regardless of your accomplishments, you didn't do it.
Right.
That somehow everything that I've done or haven't done in my life is at the benefit of the government. They helped me through it. That's not the case.
It's not the case at all. I mean, you are responsible for your success or failure. And the thing is, there seems to be this trend in the United States and also in Maryland of dividing people by race and socioeconomic status.
Yeah, oh,
because
yes.
That's how, quite frankly, that's how liberals get ahead.
Yes.
Is by doing that, dividing people.
That's why I have real issues with this whole achievement gap, and I bring it up a lot. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. No one's ever going to tell me that a little brown-faced kid is not as smart as a little white-faced kid. I'll never buy. I don't like the excuses. It makes, maybe if the kid goes home and they're hungry, we don't need to look at the schools. We need to look at the community. But when they talk about this achievement gap, they are doing a disservice to people of color, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree very much. I think it's about having self-respect, but it's also taking responsibility for what you do or don't do.
Which is hard for an elementary school kid if they're hungry. But when they get older and they're in middle school and they're working and they're doing, there should not be an achievement gap. Why is it there? Is it because of the school? Because every child is being taught the same. I think it's in the community.
Yes.
Is what I think is going on.
And Maryland has a very generous and always has had an incredibly generous social net, a safety net, I should say. And it's always been that way. So there are so many opportunities to get ahead in this state. And I can tell you that, what we consider to be poor today would have made me poor by every standard when I was growing up. And of course you hear parents say this all the time, but we had one bathroom for
Sure,
6 people.
right.
I mean, now people, of course, they have 2.5 bathrooms and so forth, and which is great,
And can't pay their bills.
And right, can't pay their bills.
And they can't pay their bills, right?
Well, this is what I want to happen, Mark. When you get back to Annapolis, I want a weekly report of who's voting for what tax.
Absolutely.
And it could be you could give it to me in a parking garage in a trench coat.
I'm very concerned about this VMT. I am concerned about that.
If that happens, Mark, I'm going to tell you right now.
Listen, we have a very small commute. We have 7 miles one way, but we have friends that commute very long distances, and this will now. If they commute into Virginia, do the Virginia miles count as well?
Oh,
or does
absolutely.
The Jeep? See,
Absolutely,
that is
outrageous.
If this goes through, I'm telling you, it's going to be. I'm not kidding. It's going to be pitchforks and torches up in
do you
Annapolis.
think so?
I agree. No, I agree. I think people are already, of course, talking about how they can basically be conscientious objectors and not put these GPS systems on if it were to become law, of course. But you talked about spending teachers' pensions. The governor took $200 million out of the teachers' pensions fund this year, and he put it into the general fund for more spending. So,
and teachers need to know. I don't know if teachers know that. I mean, I'm
No,
sure
they
there
don't
was
know.
an
no,
email
the
sent out.
the teachers don't know it. And what's amazing is he's already has in his budget to do the same thing next year, an additional $200 million. Now, just keep
Now, hold on. I thought counties paid for the teachers' pensions
Well,
at this
It's
point.
a combination of state and county. So what he did was he took the state portion of the money and he put it in the general fund and spent it. And of course, someone else did that too. His name was Bernie Madoff. He used other people's money for himself, and he went to prison. But in Annapolis, you get, of course, a pay raise.
and possibly go to the White House.
That's right.
So
He's
they
not
go to
gonna be
prison.
elected. Come on,
you watch.
come on.
All right,
He's
listen,
not.
Mark. Thanks for coming in,
Hey,
Mark Fisher.
mayonnaise
Thank
or
you.
Miracle Whip? Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip? You're having a ham sandwich. Mayonnaise or Miracle Whip?
Probably mayonnaise. Yeah.
What is going on?
Nobody likes Miracle Whip.
It says miracle on the label.
Much respect, Mark. Thank you for that.
Thank you for
All right.
having
Thank
me.
you
It's an
so
honor.
much.
Thanks.
7:25. Let's get a check of traffic. See what's happening on the roads this morning. Hopefully, everybody's behaving out there.